You have no doubt heard me say that while we know fairly little about what heaven is actually like, because, well, Scripture actually tells us precious little, the most enduring image of heaven is that it is like a wedding banquet. I happen to like this image because it reminds us that heaven is all about celebration. But there's another banquet, this one in Revelation 19, that is a little different. It's a sort of negative image, almost a photo negative, of the great wedding banquet in heaven. In this banquet, the participants do not celebrate. In fact, the participants do not get to feast on the meal at all, for they themselves are the meal. It's a kind of dark image, but it's one worth attending to. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your Daily Devotional for Wednesday, November 24th, 2021. Today's reading begins at Revelation 19:9, where John writes, "And the angel said to me, Write this, Blessed are those who are invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb." Once again, the image of the wedding banquet as a description of heaven. But in the very next scene, John tells us of a vision of the risen Christ, now seated on a white horse as a warrior, leading myriads of soldiers, also on white horses, and wearing fine linens. Then the scene changes again to a final cataclysm in which the kings of the earth and those who represent the forces of evil are also called to a banquet, but clearly one that they wish they could avoid. John says, "Then I saw an angel standing in the sun, and with a loud voice he called to all the birds that fly in mid-heaven, 'Come, gather for the great supper of God, to eat the flesh of kings, the flesh of captains, the flesh of the mighty, the flesh of horses and of their riders, flesh of all, both free and slave, both small and great.' Then I saw the beast and the kings of the earth with their armies gathered to make war against the rider on the horse and against his army. And the beast was captured, and with it the false prophet who had performed in its presence the signs by which he deceived those who had received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped its image. These two were thrown alive into the lake of fire that burns with sulfur. And the rest were killed by the sword of the rider on the horse, the sword that thus came from his mouth, and all the birds were gorged with their flesh." Okay, well, yuck. This is a bit of a gory scene, isn't it? Kings and captains and soldiers and war horses become a feast for the birds of the air. But if we can get past the initial gore of the scene, what John is really saying is what we've heard him say over and over and over again. The cosmic battle of good and evil is over. God has won, and those who are aligned with Rome specifically and with the powers of sin and evil generally have lost. Of course, like heaven, which is our future, this all takes place at some other time. What future? When? John isn't really concerned with when, only that the final result is already settled, even if we can't see it just yet from our perspective. What is also fascinating is how John takes the image of the banquet, an image more often used to describe heaven, and inverts it. Now, instead of a feast of cosmic celebration, it is a feast of cosmic retribution, where God's judgment is finally made manifest for all to see. The message is clear. For those who remain faithful to God, the future is a banquet where one is free at last to feast on all the good things, while for those who align themselves with the powers of evil and of oppression can expect to be the main course at a banquet that is literally for the birds. I don't know about you, but I don't often think in terms of retribution and punishment. But then again, as I have said before, I am not subject to persecution. I can only imagine, though, that for those like John's audience who face daily persecution in ways great and small, there would be a real sense of satisfaction that those who have been oppressive would finally receive their just deserts. When we return tomorrow, we'll read one of the most perplexing passages in all of Revelation and the source of a lot of speculation, most of it fruitless. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.